You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Option Block, everyone's favorite. I know it's my favorite. Hopefully it's your favorite bi-weekly source for all things options related out there. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever exciting, at least we tend to think so, Options Insider Radio Network. Hope you all had a great weekend out there. We are about to commence our broadcast week. Before we do that, of course, I want to remind you of a couple of things at the top of the show. First off, if you like what you hear, do throw some stars our way, either on the Option Block feed or on the full network, however you get the show. But if you're not listening to the full network, what the heck are you doing at this point? And then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, maybe you want to get your name entered into the hat to win the Pro Trading Crate, which maybe we'll be giving one of those away today, spoiler alert. So stay tuned for all that fun. The optionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we go around the horn and see who's joining us. Before we get there, I don't want to introduce them yet because it is our broadcast kickoff, listeners, which means it is also time to get the juices flowing, get the blood pumping a little bit out there with all things 80s wrestling. Yes, that's how we like to kick off our broadcast week here on the network. We've been doing a lot of fun guessing games here on the show for years now. And we've kind of gotten into this trivia mode. We used to guess the entrance teams, all that kind of stuff, who the wrestler was. Now we're going straight to the trivia. And so I am still, if I sound a little different, listeners, I am still in the Southern studio here for a few more days. So you might hear the music cut in post. We're going to do it live, the raw, old-fashioned way. No music here on the live version. But I am joined now by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. All right, we're going to get into our trivia here. We talked recently about WrestleMania 1 and all the fun there. Talked about the clash of Hogan versus Warrior at WrestleMania 6. We just kind of coming off the heels of WrestleMania season. We kind of got WrestleMania on the brain, so we're going to keep the WrestleMania madness going. This time, we're going all the way out to WrestleMania 2. No one ever talks about WrestleMania 2. There might be a good reason for that. It was a kind of a weird event, listeners. It was kind of a simulcast event from 3 different venues. It was in L.A., it was out of Long Island, not even at Madison Square Garden. It was the Nassau Coliseum out there in Long Island, and of course, the Rosemont Horizon out there in the suburbs of Chi-Town. So a 3-parter there in terms of simulcast events, which meant we had effectively one main event, but there were actually technically kind of almost 3 main events of this show, which is kind of probably why they didn't know what to make of this thing. So I will leave it now open up to you folks, the unklest of mics and the greasiest of meatballs, whoever wants to buzz in. If you can name one of these main events from WrestleMania 2. All right, I heard Greasy Meatball first, so go for it, sir. All right, everybody. Future Mark beaming in here. As I mentioned, we were recording this from the Southern studio. Unfortunately, sometimes technology doesn't cooperate with us, and we lost an early portion of the show here, including a lot of the back and forth from Uncle Mike and the greasiest of meatballs. Spoiler alert, the meatball got 1.5 points for guessing 1.5 of the main events of WrestleMania 2. Uncle Mike got 0.5 point for guessing the other main event, the Mr. T Rowdy Roddy Piper boxing match. And then, of course, we lost their market commentary. We lost the fact that we were trying to have the winner of the guessing game pick the winner of the Pro Trading Crate. Unfortunately, Mr. Meatball decided to delay that throughout most of the show, much to my and to many of the live listeners' consternation. But we did eventually get a winner there. I won't spoil that. That's coming up there. So that's why the show is a little bit truncated today. All right, back to the recording, what there is of it. Yeah, the one I was really looking for was the King Kong Bundy versus, that was technically the main event. That was from Los Angeles. And you're right, they had some crazy stuff going on out there in Chicago, including Mr. Fridge out there. So I'll give you one for the actual main event, which is the Bundy and Hogan. Well, I'll give you 0.5 point for the other thing. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if you want to dive in, steal 0.5 point. Can you name one of the other? So guess what was going on? What was going on in Long Island? Yes, you're right. They brought Mr. T back. People kind of forget about that. They thought he was kind of one and done in WrestleMania 1, but actually he was back for good old WrestleMania 2 out there. So yeah, kind of weird. So you got a 0.5 point there as well. So an interesting one around the horn, listeners, as we go ourselves around the horn right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down what the heck is trading out there. Another kind of weird session out there to start the week here. Listeners, coming off, of course, our truncated holiday week last week. The whole day has kind of been looking pretty much mixed. I think you could put it charitably, even though it does seem like we are starting to move into the rally-ho portion of the session. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe even all the major indices green by the time we end the show. Looking at it earlier in the session, we had the Dow kind of flirting with green, but mostly unched. And the S&P and the NASDAQ were looking pretty decently red. The NASDAQ was off over 1% at one point. As we're coming into the start of the show now, we have the S&P closing in on unch, not quite there yet, off about 0.15%. The Dow up about 0.2%, and the NASDAQ only off about 0.33%. So a lot of our major indices kind of erasing their losses from earlier this morning, with the exception of the Dow, which has kind of just been meandering all day. Of course, the S&P still pretty much glued to that 4,100 level. It doesn't seem like it is physically capable of moving away from that strike for very long at this point. So intriguing stuff out there. That means when we kicked off the show, listeners, VIX was threatening a 20, up nearly 1.1 points, about a 19.19 earlier in the session. Now that has come off, obviously, with a little bit of this rally. It's only at about a 19.20 right now. VVIX, our old friend out there, was hanging out earlier in the session, not that long before showtime, listener, which again is another reason why we can't really prep for any of our shows, especially the option block, too long ahead of time, because these markets are fickle. It was at an 88 when we were closing in on showtime. That puts it up about 4 points now as we kick off the show. It's up about 2 points at about an 86. Our old friend VXX, which I have said before, is starting to catch my eye a little bit again, just because, hey, it moved up north of 50 and it's just hemorrhaging value, which is always intriguing out there in the volatility space. Was at a 43.80 not that long before showtime, which puts it pretty much unched on the week as we're kicking off the show now at about a 43.20, which puts it actually down about 0.5 point on the week. So again, they're not seeing huge rock'em sock'em evolutions out there, but that's what we got out here. UVXY, I'm going to guess it's somewhere hanging out close to 4.5. Oh yeah, that. It was almost exactly 4.5, which put it unched coming into showtime. Now it's down to about 4 1/3, which just what a garbage product it is now. Let's just get this reverse split. What are they waiting for? It's just. I think the technical term is a piece of crap now. I mean, if you're really excited about moving from 4.5 to 4.3, then hey, don't let me dissuade you. But just not at all exciting on that front. SVIX moving north still, even though not quite as north as it was at about a 17 even when we were closing in on the showtime. That puts it literally unched on the week, now up about 0.15 on the week. So not a huge evolution out there. Let's see if our friend UVIX can deliver more heat out there. UVIX, of course, the leveraged one at about a 14 2/3 when we kicked off the show. Was at a 15, which put it exactly unched coming into showtime. That 14 2/3 puts it down about a third of a point on the week out there. And then our old friend VolQ listeners, which is, of course, the NASDAQ volatility out there. You want more VolQs, tune into VolViews on Friday. Was at about 23 1/4, which puts it up exactly a point. And now we're seeing it at about 22 2/3 when we're coming into the start of the show. So that puts it up somewhere around 0.4 on the week out there. So a lot to unpack. Let's go around the horn. Let's go to our early winner out there, which is the greasiest of Meatball. Actually, Mr. Meatball, I have a bonus for you. Before you even do your trading block, we have been teasing the release of the Pro Trading Crate for some time. Even though I'm in the Southern studio, I am able to fire up the random number generator for our members. So do me a favor. Whenever this mood strikes you, just tell me to stop. The numbers are spinning right now, and I will see who our winner is. All right, sir. Have at it. Whenever you want. The floor is yours. Whoa. Is that the official stop? Tusaw jumped in. He stole your stop. I don't know if that technically counts. Let's get the wheel spinning again. All right, let's see who the actual winner is now. Oh, you want to go? Okay, you want to tease the listeners? Okay, all right. Don't get mad at me, listeners. At some point, oh my God, this thing's gonna be running forever. It's gonna melt my laptop. All right, go ahead, sir. Let's keep looking out now to Uncle Mike, sir. While I'm getting some messages from the chat, looks like they're having some connectivity issues. So I will deal with that, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. What is catching your eye out there in the markets today, sir?
2% on the day. It was down a lot lower, but we're at 160, a little north of 161 right now. We did almost touch the 159 handle, not quite, but we did almost get there. So we do have that. That's happening right now. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting day in that early on looked like we were going to be a lot lower, but not quite the case at this point in time. We have oil going below 80. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on as well. And, the other thing, of course, is that you guys know me, I'm the Bitcoin bull. We might make a run at 30,000 on Bitcoin today. We're up 5% on it right now, and maybe we could hit 30,000 on Bitcoin. We'll see. But even if we do, I will be honest, I still continue my same sentiment on Bitcoin for the long haul. Refer to my other domain if you're curious about what it would actually be. So I think just with where this is right now, it's a Fed-driven market, and we'll see how the Fed chooses to drive it.
We shall see how the Fed chooses to drive it indeed, as I have fixed what was going on out there. So you folks out there in the live should be getting some audio driven your way now. You never know when you're in the Southern studio here how things are rolling out there. Speaking of rolling, before I get into some of this other activity, Mr. Meatball, has the mood possessed you at all to pick a winner yet, or not quite yet? No? Okay, I'm just... Okay, listeners, you're on me all the time. Why don't you win? Don't get mad at me now. I want you to blame. Solely the blame is clearly in the domain of the Meatball now. We'll get into some of... That's you again, Tusaw, isn't it? You're gonna freaking kill our listeners. They're gonna jump through the screen and they're going to murder you both. They are waiting with bated breath. Here we are. It's like, where's the March trading crate? Where's the March? I'm trying to give it to you, listeners, and they literally will not let me do it. So do not blame me. I refuse to, says the guy who keeps jumping in with your fake. I think I picked 3 fake winners now because of you. I might be legally obligated to give them all boxes because of you, Uncle Mike. And then that's coming out of your invoice. All right, let's go out here to see what's going on out here in the markets. And again, like I said earlier, it's kind of one of those day, listeners, where you kind of depends where you look, how much action you're having. If you're solely fixated on the vol space, you're kind of having a bit of a boring day, at least from an overall VIX volume perspective. Only 221,000 contracts on the tape. That might have seemed decent maybe a few months ago before the Fed really kicked us into high gear when we were hanging out somewhere around 500,000 contracts a day. But VIX is threatening 900,000 contracts a day right now. So that's ADV at least. Not going to hit that today, it doesn't seem like, unless we have a severe turnaround out there in the markets. 221, kind of a bit of a light day out there. SPY, though, SPY not really being held back by too much. 4.56 million contracts on the tape for SPY. The ADV 9.5, so it seems pretty much on course to get somewhere around there today. The S also putting up some numbers out there today. 1.44 million contracts on the tape for the S. The ADV right around 2.9 million, so the S also within spitting distance of halfway to its ADV. So the S and SPY putting up numbers. VIX just can't really keep pace today for whatever reason. Same deal with small caps. I mean, again, this is kind of a frame of reference issue. If you were back a few months ago when small caps through IWM were averaging 700, maybe 800,000 contracts, 416,000 would seem like a ton. That would seem like a banger day. Now we're hanging out at 1.3 million a day. 416 seems kind of light by comparison. And last but not least, we got the Qs, 1.63 million, the ADV 3.2 million out there. So pretty much exactly half of the way for the old Qs out there today, listeners. Let's keep on rolling out there to the top 10 most actives. And let's go first off. Now they're telling me they can't hear me in this live. You know what? This live business, when we're on the, let's see, can we get myself there? Let's go to that. Here, at least you can hear me for now. Maybe I'll have to manually switch it here. Live switching on the fly. All right. You should be able to hear everything now, listeners. All right. Let's go out to our top 10 most active. And this is kind of one of those days that time forgot, listeners. One of those days where it seems like if I just looked at these numbers, I would say, oh, maybe we're in mid-August or we're in late December. Only 155,000 contracts on the tape. That gets us all the way to our old friend Meta, listeners. Trading right now about 214 even. That puts it down a little over 2, about 210 on the day out there. You know the deal with Meta. You don't need me to break down the sordid saga that is Meta. They have certainly discovered that layoffs are a clear path to victory for stock. So they're still well north of that 200 handle after getting run over in the other direction not too long ago. Remember, we talked about someone getting run over on the November 200 calls back late last year. Listen, we talked about that saga a little bit on Options Oddities recently. What happened to that person, how they kept rolling, and how they performed as a result, if you want to hear that whole saga. And really, why don't you? Options Oddities is kind of one of the hidden gems here on the network. We don't talk about it a lot, but if you're not listening to that show, and if you listen to that show and you can't figure out something to trade, something that intrigues you, at least makes you go, and expand your own horizons for your own trading, then you're not doing it right. And we talked about some cool calls in Meta not too long ago. Today, Meta only 155,000 contracts. That's all it costs you to break into the top 10. So not exactly a rock'em sock'em robots day. Let's go out to number 9, a name we haven't talked about except for a week and a half ago when the Flowmaster brought it up out of the blue. It was Micron. Right now, Micron, banger day for Micron, 63 and about a half, up nearly 5 handles, 490 right now. So quite a day here for Micron. On the year, let's see, they got as high as 76 and a quarter, so they're about $9, close to it away from that. Actually, no, 76 and a quarter, so yeah, about 13. $13 almost away out there, about 12.75 to be precise from their high, and 48 and about a half, that was their low earlier here in the year. So nice little pop here for Micron. Again, a name we used to talk about a lot, was a hot up-and-comer back in the GoGo.com days back on the SIBO. A lot of guys wanted to get out into Micron. These days, it doesn't really come up that often, but today, good for number 9, 204,000 contracts on the tape. Number 8, the old Googles, a.k.a. Alphabet. You know the deal, listeners. Alphabet, the old quality stuff, the Class A, 106 and a quarter, off about 220 today, or about 2%. Good for 214,000 contracts. And ever since this whole AI war kicked off, and by the way, I got into this conversation with some folks on the weekend about how AI is coming for us all. It's going to kill us all. It's the end of all things, and these firms should be backing away from it, and they should be signing an arms treaty to not do it rather than rushing towards it for profit potential. So AI is clearly a very contentious thing for many people still out there. So intriguing stuff nonetheless for all things AI as we keep on rolling here. And let's make sure we got the live going here. There we go. All right, everything's working there. And then Again, Microsoft 288 and about a half, off about $3 out there today. Number 6, we've got AMD, 280,000 contracts on the tape for AMD. AMD hanging out right now, 95 and about a quarter, up about 275, nearly 3% on the day. So a nice day for AMD. And again, the chip zone coming right around where we expect it, number 6 out there today. Then we've got number 5, we've got the Amazonians. So Amazon coming a little bit low on the old totem pole today. Amazon hanging out 101 and about 3/4, off about a third of a point out there today. So not a banger day for them, but a decent volume day, 350. I mean, that's still kind of light for Amazon, but it's enough to make it into the top 5 today. And again, on a day when it seems like mostly time has forgot single names out there today. Number 4, the other half of the chip zone. So chip zone coming right where we expected. AMD around number 6, NVIDIA right around number 4 today with 402,000 contracts on the tape. Chip zone 275 and a quarter for NVIDIA, up nearly 5 handles, 485. So this is one of those weird bifurcated markets, listeners. Some names are just hot and heavy today. Others really not doing a heck of a lot at all. Some others even taking it on the chin. Kind of just a weird day out there in the markets. Again, number 4, NVIDIA, 402,000 contracts out there. All right, now to number 3. We've got AMC, 482,000 contracts. This one's kind of been all over the place lately. All the rumors flying fast and furious. Will they, won't they with Amazon? Everything else, 5 1/3 is where it's trading right now, up about 40 cents on the day. Good for 482,000 contracts and the number 3 spot. So AMC, once again, hanging out in the upper third here of our top 10. Number 2 is the Fruit Company, hanging out about where we expected, at least from a placement perspective, not so much from a volume perspective. Kind of a light day on the volume front. 570,000 contracts for Apple. Apple off a little over 3, about 320 today, or nearly 2%. So it's one of those weird days. Market doesn't like when Apple is red, and Apple is red today, trading right around 161 and a half. Looks like they drove it all the way down to about 160, almost even earlier this morning. So obviously it is all loose from there, but still off net on the day here. So intriguing stuff for Apple. And then the number 1 big dog out there, you know what it is. It's Tesla. Tesla popping off some more price cuts here over the weekend. Why not? It worked last time. Why not do it again? Right? Tesla coming off today, off about a point and a half, trading right around 183 and a half right now today. So intriguing stuff out here for Tesla. But again, good for about 1.27 million contracts. So a bit of a banger day out there for Tesla. As we keep on rolling, see what else is lighting it up out there. You know what else is lighting it up, listeners? We haven't had a chance to mention it yet on the show because I guess the folks at OCC, even though they do shows on my network, haven't still gotten our production schedule down. And for in terms of when we want to talk about stuff like the numbers for March, because they came in right after our show last week here. Our friends over there at OCC just blowing the doors off here for March. We've been kind of wondering ever since the pandemic started, can this mad tsunami of options volume, can it continue? And the answer, at least for March of this year, was heck yes. This is a record. This is the first time. We've been talking about it. Are we going to have a 1 billion contract month, listeners? Well, the answer in March was yes. Over 1 billion for the first time ever. 1.1 billion contracts. That's up 12.2% from March of last year. Clearly, it's the busiest month ever. If we're breaking 1 billion for the first time, nothing else can come close. So, yeah, just records across the board. The busiest month ever. The first time over 1 billion contracts. So clearly you folks and your mothers and grandmothers and everybody else all like yourselves a little bit of options. Let's get some highlights here. Index options up 67.7%. I wonder what could possibly be driving that. I have no idea. ETF options up 32.9%. I mean, look at these numbers they're talking about. 2/3, a third. I mean, this is just a banger across the board. Even futures that have been just in the toilet ever since, really since Volmageddon and since XIV went away, they are up 35%. Again, you're coming from a smaller baseline, but still, that's a banger number. Even securities lending, stock alone was up over there at OCC. Not something we really talk about with them, but impressive stuff nonetheless. So before I roll on into the odd block, Mr. Uncle Mike or Mr. Meatball, either of you surprised at all that we hit, first off, hit this hurdle we've been talking about forever now. 1 billion, is it possible? The answer is yes, and it happened in March. And B, that we have the busiest month in the history of the business. Either of you surprised or have any thoughts on that?
Not surprised at the billion, surprised that March was the busiest month ever. So apparently, there's a whole lot of trading going on.
It's impressive what a bank run can do to option volumes, I would say.
Yes, it is impressive what a bank run can do for options volume. You know what else is impressive, listeners? It's the odd block. So let's get to it.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we get a little whimsical. Just checking, Mr. Meatball, are you feeling the urge at any point right now to just tell me to stop?
It could happen at any moment, Mark.
You're testing. It looks like the live is going crazy again. You're testing me now here, sir, with my uses here. Why can't I get both of these? Test. Why are all of a sudden our live is going crazy here? All right, at least they can get me here now. I'll work on getting you folks out to the live as well. But let's kick things off, listeners. Let's go crazy. Let's get weird. Let's get wild here on the old Odd Block. Let's go out to, this is not a newcomer, but we have been talking about this sector for quite a while. It seems like half of our Odd Block these days is coming in pretty much these names. This is another cheapy gold name. This time we're going out to Equinox Gold 543. Off about 11 cents on the day. Let's see. On the year, listeners, let's see what kind of year we're having out here in good old EQ. It hit a high a year ago of about like 907. Just broke the 9 handle. That was back in April of last year. So obviously it's off quite a bit on the year, off about a third, trading right around 543. All right. Now, looks like we're pretty close to, actually, no, the low was looks like the low came in November of last year of 235. So we have had a nice rally from the lows, more than doubling out there, but also still a far cry from the highs out there of little over $9. But who knows? Perhaps those days are coming to a close because, Mr. Meatball, we had quite the call palooza.
Stop.
Oh, now you hit it. All right. Luckily for you, I have good.
That was me, Mark.
I hit the button as soon as you
Just kidding.
Fortunately for you. All right, listeners, our long national nightmare can come to a close. Who did he stop it on? There we go. That looks like, this person is going to be happy. He's been bugging us for some time. He's like, well, how come I've never won a pro trading crate? I've been a member for years now. And guess what? Tony P, you finally, your patience has paid off. You can thank Mr. Meatball for dragging it out for pretty much the entirety of the show here, listeners. But yes, Tony P, your ship has come in. Congratulations to you. You have waited patiently. It's been well over a year that you have not won a pro trading crate, but your ship has come in. Our producers will reach out to you with all the requisite questions, and then we will get that put together for you. And your nice custom pro trading crate will be heading out to you post haste. Just don't tell the Rock Lobster. Or maybe you should. Maybe you should tweet him at Option Ball and just say, hey, nana boo boo to you. I got a pro trading crate and you get nothing, because he really appreciates that. He finds that very fun. All right, let's see what else we got that's fun out here. Let's go to, where were we? I've lost track now. I got so excited for our buddy here, Tony P. All right. Equinox. Yes, Equinox. It was a call palooza out there today, listeners. I started off, what first caught our eye was 20,000 of the Jan 12 halves. Yes, I said we're trading right around 545 right now, listeners. We're talking Jan 12 halves here, listeners. So we are not playing games. Somebody is swinging for keeps here on the Jan 12 halves to the tune of 20,000. And then they liked it. They said, you know what, how about I'll take 18,000 more for around the same price, almost 19,000 actually. And then they said, you know, how about 6,300 more for about 25 cents? And then, 5,000 more for 25 more cents. They kept going. Well over 40,000 had gone up by the time we kicked off the show out here. So, Mr. Meatball, first off, good job on the picking. Even though some of our listeners may take a little bit of umbrage that you made them wait for a while to get it, but hey, that's the price at the end of the day for the Awesome Pro Trading Crate. And then B, did you notice in your crazy flow monitoring this explosion of calls in yet another cheapy gold name, this time EQX?
Yeah, there's been a ton of these going up, like everywhere.
Yeah,
they love.
Crazy.
I mean, they're just everywhere. But it is absolutely nuts. And yes, I don't know what's going on here, but they can't get enough of these gold miners upside. Something's going on here because there's a ton of. It's not just this one. There's like 3 or 4 gold miners going up today for some size.
Yeah, I don't really know, and they're not like I said, we're trading at 540. Well, we're not just buying the 6 calls or the 7 calls; they're buying the 12 halves. They're just swinging for the fences on this stuff, and they have been doing that in every name we've talked about here. All the cheapy call names and all the cheapy gold names, I should say, recently on the show, and there have been a lot of them. They are just swinging for the freaking fences out here, listeners. So. Yeah, something to keep an eye on here. Maybe there are some interesting fly opportunities or things. Even if you're not quite as bullish, because these are going out a pretty way, January of next year. So kind of hard to do those types of trades at that long of a distance. But hey, you could play around. If they're going to bid up upside strikes, listeners, there are things you could do to take advantage of. Maybe we'll take another look at some of these on oddities coming up later this week because, yeah, it's just gold call palooza out here, listeners. You don't even see all the paper we don't talk about, obviously, on the show. There's so many of these things firing off out here that it's kind of hard to keep it all straight. But do you like these? Are you playing in any of these cheapy gold miners? We've talked about a ton of them here now on the show. Have any of these lit your fires? Are you liking these ways they're doing it? Crazy long-term, crazy out-of-the-money calls? Is that the way you would play it? I'm intrigued. Hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling into our new name. This is a newcomer here. This is Marine Max Inc. Ticker symbol, of course, HZO, because why wouldn't it be HZO? Marine Max Inc. I'm going to guess they do something with marine activity. Maybe they make boats. Trading 27.40 right now, up about 2/3 of a point or about 2.5%. On the year, a little bit of a different story. Let's see. Going back a year, they maxed out, it seems like, at about 45, almost 46. That was back in May of last year. They hung out there for quite a while. They hung out near that level until about August. And then when the whole market rallied, they started selling off, actually, last year. And they started coming for it. By September, they got down to close to their lows for the year, about 29.25. Then they rallied it again towards the end of the year, actually beginning of this year. In February, they got up to 35.25 again before coming for it again and setting a new 52-week low of 26.25. That was back in early to mid-March. And they're hanging out right now at about 27.40. So pretty close to their 52-week lows right now, listeners. Off a little over $12 on the year here, about 31%. So a rough year for Marine Max. And if our option paper is to be believed, our Eye of Sauron, it ain't done yet, listeners, because someone came in this morning and scooped 7,628 of the May 25 puts. Uncle Mike's not liking our paper. He's exasperated by Uncle Mike. You're not liking our paper here?
It's something.
There we go. Southern Studio listeners. I can't mute these guys all the time. Let's go out to the May 25 puts. The paper paid $1.20. So through the offer, they were $1 to $1.15, and they bought 7,628 of them for $1.20 through the offer for a nickel. Sometimes you have to do that on these less liquid names anyway, listeners, because there's not a lot of size offered at $1.15. That is a 71 vol if you are intrigued. And let's see, they liked them so much they came back and did about 4,000 more. Total of a little over 11,000 had gone up when we kicked off the show today. So Mr. Meatball, this is a name that has been beaten up all year. They're hanging out pretty much right around the 52-week low right now. And then someone's coming up and saying, you know what? There looks like there may be some more downside to come. By the way, there are earnings. The earnings are on April 27th, so maybe that informs your opinion of these puts a little bit differently. But Mr. Meatball, what do you think? Someone loaded for beer to the downside here in Marine Max, sir.
Yeah, that's what it appears. And you got earnings in there. Stock's been going lower, and stocks that drop tend to continue dropping. And this player is definitely thinking that there could be some ugliness here.
Some ugliness indeed here as we keep on rolling into our final name here on the old odd block today. Let's see. What do we got here? We got, oh, right back to the well, listeners here. You liked our other name. You like our other cheapy mining and resource and gold names, listeners. We got another one for you. This is Antero Resources. Not quite as cheap this time. We're not talking $2. We're talking $24. Ticker symbol AR. Trading 24.20 right now, up about $0.75 or a little over 3% today. So a nice little pop for them today. On the year, a little bit of a different story, listeners. A year ago, it was trading at pretty much 32.75, so obviously still higher on the year. But then they rallied it. They rallied it in June up to its high for the year, like about 48 and a third, and then they kind of came for it a few times since then. They tried to rally it again back up to about $39 in November, and then ever since then, that's pretty much been all she wrote. It's been mostly downside since November. It bottomed out recently in late March, like about 21 and a half, and since then it has rallied a few bucks, trading like 24, close to 24.25 right now, listeners. So it has bounced off the low, but still obviously a good ways off the high, off about 26% on the year. And what did our eye of Sauron find? If it's like anything else, listeners, people want all sorts of upside in these names. Let's see if this is the case as well. And actually, it does not appear to be the case. In fact, looks like maybe we have somebody getting a little bit risky out there and legging into an upside call vertical. In particular, was what first caught our eye was 7,431 of the July 29 calls, going up for 94 cents, pretty much exactly on the bid. That was the bid. That is a 47, almost a 48 vol if you are intrigued. And the stock was trading right about 24 even, so a little bit lower when these bad boys went up. So someone blasting away at these calls, would you say, okay, fine, that's an overwrite. We see this all the time. It's about $5 out of the money, so not the most aggressive of overwrites. They still got a decent amount for it, almost $1, so you can't hate it. And then it looks like about about exactly half an hour later, someone came in and bought almost the exact same amount, but it was 74.31 of the 29s. They bought 7,248 of the Jan 32 calls, and they paid $215. Now, there could be a couple of reasons for this. They could have decided they wanted to leg into this, and then they saw the stock start running against them because they bought these calls, and the stock was a little north of 24.25. So the stock had moved about $0.25 against them if they were the same people selling these. And they decided, you know what? We are taking a little bit of heat out here. Also, weirdly enough, they went farther out in time. So if this is the same customer, they kind of legged into more of a diagonal here. They bought the Jan 32s this time. They paid $215 for these. So if that is this spread, it's an interesting one. And maybe not the worst. They're getting a lot for those Julys. They got almost $1 for those. So if those go out worthless, they're getting these Jan 32s for less than half price, right? We're close to half price. And then, so it's intriguing out here. And of course, they could write those again many times between now and Jan. So it could be they got spooked when the stock ran a quarter and they decided to buy calls, but they didn't buy calls in the same expiration month. They bought them farther out, all the way in Jan. Maybe this was their plan all along. They wanted to see what they could get the first leg off for. Maybe they thought that was the hard leg. We always, back on the trading floor, used to always say, do the hard leg first, and then do the second one later, the easier one later on, when you can get that off whenever you want. So maybe they were looking at it this way. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts here? Do you think this is related paper? Do you think it's just eerily timed and similarly sized paper, but not related at all? And did you notice these in your big money flow today, sir?
I did, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say, based on the timing, they're probably related. I mean, that's what I think. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I have learned over the years, sir, that it is probably a waterfowl. Yes. So, I mean, this is not a name that puts up a lot of paper. To have two blocks like this go up so close in time and almost the exact same size. A little bit of funkiness with the execution and how they decided to put it up. Do you like it this way? Do you like it with the longer term Jan upside and then selling the July a little bit closer to the fire side, but still $5 out of the money.
Yeah, I mean it's a diagonal type of play where they're trying to, capture a little bit of premium while looking for long-term upside. They're basically telling us they think the bulk of the move is going to be the latter half of the year, not near term. And there's probably some stock. There might be some stock against this as well. Kind of interested to see that. But yeah, it's definitely a unique one, to say the least.
You know who else is unique? He's Uncle Mike Tusaw. So let's get to him. A little bit of the old strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Strategy Block, the portion of the show where Uncle Mike holds court with some options, wit, and or wisdom, and also his thoughts on all 3 to 4 main events of WrestleMania 2, sir. Have at it.
I don't think we have enough time to go through all the events of WrestleMania, especially WrestleMania 2. That was a classic. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it was definitely one for the ages. The fact that they had 3 venues, they timed everything to where they did the New York event first, then the Chicago event, then the LA event. So that way it all worked out with time zones. And apparently it didn't quite get the draw that it would normally get, apparently. Otherwise, they would have gone back to that again. But on paper, you'd think that would be kind of a neat idea for some type of a WrestleMania, wouldn't you?
I'm down for it.
You would, but look at what happened with this last WrestleMania. This most recent one was 2 days, and that's because the last one I think was like 19 hours long. And they finally figured out, we need to break this up.
Yeah, it's becoming quite the thing, and I mean, not a lot of sporting events do that. But if they can sell out for those 2 days and do what they do, God bless them. But anyway, in terms of the strategy block for today, I want to talk about time frame selection. And with a lot of the talk of the 0 DTEs, as well as just in recent years, the weeklies becoming more of a thing, I just want to kind of give an idea of something to look at when deciding if you're going to use more near-term options or more long-term options. Now, first off, let's say that I'm looking to be an option seller. And if I'm looking to be an option seller, let's also assume that there's no major events coming up. And I'm debating between selling a 1-week option or a 1-year option. Well, if God were to tell me that the market is never or that the underlying is never going to move, then I'm going to be better off selling 1-week options 52 weeks in a row, as opposed to just selling a 52-week option. Now, unfortunately, God doesn't tell me what stocks are going to move one way or another, but just to kind of give you an idea of the thinking behind this is that the near-term premium that you get over time will add up to be greater than what long-term premium will be typically. It's never always that way, but typically that's the way with which it works. Now, so with that in mind, why on earth would I ever sell anything that's greater than a 1-day option? Well, here's the question that you have to ask yourself every time you're in this conundrum as to whether you should sell a near-term option or a long-term option. Do you feel that you can be right enough times selling the near-term option to outweigh the money you would get from a long-term option? So in other words, once again, if God's telling you what's going to happen, it's going to happen that way, but God doesn't tell us how stocks are going to move. But let's say that you believe that if you were to sell 6 monthly options, that would be a better deal than selling a 1-time 9-month option. And you believe that you have a very high likelihood of being right 6 times in a row, then by all means, then you should look to sell the 1-month options 6 times in a row. However, if you're concerned that you're not going to be right that many times and you want to be a little bit more conservative, then you may want to consider selling the longer term option. So here's another way with which to think about it. Let's say you're looking to sell a slightly out of the money covered call, and you sell a 1 month covered call for $1, as opposed to doing a 9 month covered call for $6. Now, by doing that, let's say the stock goes down significantly the next day. Well, if that's the case, then you would have been better. And let's say it stays down significantly, then you would have been better off selling the longer term option because of the fact that you have more premium locked in. Whereas if you only sold the 1 month option for $1, you're not going to be doing quite as well because you didn't sell enough juice on it. Now, of course, let's say that after 6 months, the stock stays the exact same. Well, you probably haven't had that much of a profit on the 9-month option. But had you been selling 1 month options month in, month out, you would have made the same amount of money by then, and you could have gone along your merry way or continued to sell even more. So the way with which to think about it when deciding to sell a near-term option versus a longer-term option is, do you think you can get that much more money by being right that many times to make up for selling the longer term for not selling the longer term option? The final thing with which you need to look at is, are there major events coming up? If there is an event coming up, or a volatility event, if you will, whether it's an announcement on the stock or a macro announcement, if you're doing the index, that could play into near-term options as well. So with all that in mind, make sure you have an informed decision on whether it makes sense to sell a certain time frame or not. And that's the way that I like to look at it.
And I like to look at things with you folks here on the mail block. So let's get to it.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Mail Block, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments, your insights, your pearls of wisdom. And we always like to joke and have our fun with our 80s wrestling on our first show of the week, listeners. But, this spills over into real-world market discussion right now. And it seems like a lot of people are debating this quote-unquote merger alliance, call it what you will now, between WWE and Endeavor/UFC. Endeavor, obviously, the parent company of UFC. They're talking a lot about it's going to be a UFC-WWE merger, but it doesn't really make sense if you think about it. UFC does not have the market cap to be bigger than WWE. Endeavor does, maybe, if you add in all their entities, including professional bull riding. Huge, huge market there. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. So we thought we'd put that out to you folks this week. Kind of a fun 80s wrestling-inspired question of the week. We're asking you, what are your thoughts on the recent quote-unquote merger between WWE and UFC/Endeavor? Are you guys out there? Are you going to be fading the new entity when it launches is going to be called TKO, which is a great ticker. I'll give them that. Are you going to buy long-term calls? Are you bullish? 10% out of the money calls 1 year out once this thing launches? Or are you going to be fading at the high heaven? You're going to buy 1 year, 10% out of the money puts. This just went live a few minutes ago, so we're getting breaking insight from our audience. Let's go out to the greasiest of meatballs first while we give our audience a chance to vote. Mr. Meatball, sir, which way are you going, and then which way you think our audience is going?
What are my options?
So this new entity launches. Are you going to fade it? You're going to buy long-term puts? Or are you going to be all over it? You're going to buy long-term calls? What you doing?
Probably neither. I'm going to do nothing.
That is not a choice in our Twitter poll. You must take action, sir.
All right. I think that's a decent merger, and there's a lot of synergy. So sure, I'll buy it.
Going long is the Meatball. He's hugely bullish on real and predetermined fighting. Let's say. Let's not use the F word. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. Are you bullish on this whole big crazy deal? And what do you think our audience is up to?
I'm going to do a conversion on it. I'm going to buy a stock, sell a covered call, and buy a put.
Okay, then. Locking in that juicy rate for a year, are you?
No, I think on a serious note, I would say that if I had to pick in the Twitter poll, I would be bullish on it. I think it's going to be a good thing overall because those are two very hot entities and they're going to be coming together, and I think it'll be good things. But full disclosure, I do not hold a position in any of that.
Well, right now, the early voting is 100% fading. 100% of our audience in the early voting is buying that 1 year, 10% out of the money put. Obviously, this is a fun one, listeners. This thing is not listed yet. There may be some, who knows? Given the environment we're in, there could be some sort of regulatory holdup. Look what happened to the Microsoft Activision deal, right? That one got held up forever. This is technically a merger, so a little bit different. It's not a straightforward acquisition. It is weird that WWE, which had a market cap for the whole year close to $9 billion, is what they wanted to sell it for, would allow itself to be the junior entity in a merger with something like UFC, which just a few years ago was acquired for just about $4.25 billion. I don't think they've tripled in value since that acquisition. I love how they throw these terms around like enterprise value, the enterprise value of this deal. Vince McMahon also becoming the subordinate partner in this deal now to Ari Emanuel. So intriguing stuff. A lot of questions behind the scene about why Vince would take this deal. Doesn't seem like the best deal for him, not getting cash. He had cash. Obviously, he wanted to sell it. A lot of firms wanted to buy it, but no one wanted it with him attached. So it seems like he was the albatross of this deal. So this one, at least let him stay involved. But there's going to be books written about this years from now, about all this madness behind the scenes of how all this went down. But we shall see. Right now, our audience is fading as we keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode on Thursday. Well, I will be back in the Chi-Town studios and out of this fun, warmer weather down here at least. But before we do that, let's go out to the greases and meatballs first. Mr. Meatball, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until our Thursday episode?
I'm watching CPI, I'm watching PPI, I'm watching Fed minutes. There is plenty of going on. So I'm excited for this week. I think there could be some fireworks.
Interesting. Fireworks, says Meatball. And also, clearly, listeners, he is hugely bullish TKO. He's going to put all of his personal savings into it. So look forward to when it launches. He is long all of it. Mr. Uncle Mike, he's just going out for the juicy rates. He's doing the conversion reversals in TKO all day long. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until our next chat on Thursday?
Well, if compliance is going to get me for doing conversions, that would be a great story, which I'm not. Agreeing to what Mark is watching. In addition, I'm watching the 4100 magnet on the SPX.
Quite the magnet indeed. It does seem like we are glued to it, listeners, here. 4100 level in SPX. All right, that is going to do it for us here on the old OB today, listeners. If you are listening live, if you managed to, if your connection was working here, then good for you out here. Don't worry, you get a bonus. In addition to giving away the Pro Trading Crate today, you guys are going to get your crypto rundown immediately after the option block. So no waiting. We're all going to surf over to BitcoinReallySucks.com, Uncle Mike's domain, and post a lot of mean messages there live during the show. So stay tuned for that. Mr. Uncle Mike, while we're trying to do that on the next show, and while you're busily deleting all of our hated comments, where should folks go if they want more insight onto your TKO conversion reversal?
I suppose I better make the site live if you're going to go to it first, but head to stcharleswealth.com if you are looking for a financial advisor, and would be more than happy to have a conversation with any of our listeners. I always enjoy it.
There you go, stcharleswealth.com. You can also give him a follow over there at Mike Tusaw, Tosaw, all one word, as we keep on going out to the land of brisket and Tex-Mex and The Undertaker. It is Austin. Mr. Meatball, sir, where should folks go if they want to check out all your goodness?
Head over to OptionPit.com. I'm writing a blog about trading just about every day. You can just go to OptionPit.com and check out all of our amazing content. Can't wait to see you there.
There you go. OptionPit.com is the place to go to learn more. That is going to do it for us here on the old OB. Like I said, for all you pro folks, hang out. I'll be back instantaneously breaking down all the madness going on out there in the world of crypto. You're going to get your usually scheduled programming out here throughout the middle portion of the week. I will be back in the studio live for the option block on Thursday, listeners, as well as Twifo. So we'll see you then. Stay safe out there.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.